Yo, brother.
Yo,
Assalamu alaikum.
walaikum salam.
How are you?
I'm great. I'm great. How about you? How's everything?
I'm good. I'm good. I'm blessed. Where are you at? You in Bali?
Okay. Yes, I'm in Bali. I'm in my rooftop in my living space.
Nice, nice, nice. Yeah, we're in San Diego near the U.S.-Mexico border, trying to break all
All right, cool.
those barriers and borders like you talked about.
All right, yeah.
Yeah, yeah. How's
Mhm.
everything in Indonesia? How's everyone holding up?
Everyone is holding up okay, I guess. But the situation is a bit crazy because the first weeks was okay, but then everyone is starting to become, they have this anxiety of being stuck in prison and staying at home. So, I mean, I try to engage my audience, try to give them some support and some positive energy to tell them, you must get through it. Have faith.
No, it's beautiful what you've been doing and the music that you've been putting
Thank you.
out. I really,
Thank you. Alhamdulillah.
I was connected with your music for the first time about 2 years ago. I think the Salam song
Okay.
was the first music, was the first song I
Okay.
heard, of course, and then I just started listening to all of it, whatever I could find
Okay.
on Spotify, of course, and then I started
Okay.
looking on YouTube. It's really, really
All right.
powerful, beautiful,
Thank you.
healing music. I mean, I feel like I love how you talk about reggae as
Uh-huh.
this sacred music. Could you talk about, kind
Hmm.
of your journey
Hmm.
with reggae music and how you came to do what you do?
Okay. Well, thank you beforehand for giving me this opportunity. Alhamdulillah. I would like to
Yeah,
send my Assalamu alaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh to everyone in global Muslim life. And also, I believe there are a few of my audience also
yeah, definitely.
checking. So, yeah, insan lagi Assalamualaikum semuanya lagi di global Muslim life. So, excuse me, I'm going to use two languages. Yeah. But I guess my journey started for reggae music. First time I heard reggae music was around 1993. I had a chance also to live in New York City for
Mm.
quite some time, and I was exposed to reggae music first there. But first time I was exposed to it was through dance hall music because a cousin of mine listened to these dance hall mixtapes, and I was familiar with rap, with hip hop, and I was like, they have like these very dense lyrics, but I can't understand a word they're saying. And and he told me, oh, this is reggae. So first time my exposure to reggae music was actually dancehall music. But then for like in the form of roots reggae, for like conscious reggae music was sometime years after when my mom had a conference in Jamaica and she brought me some Bob Marley CDs, and that's where I was exposed to it first time. The journey started there.
Beautiful.
Hmm.
And then it's really interesting how you bring everything together, right? You're bringing together the worlds of reggae and kind
Yes,
of talking about the spirituality within the music, but then also talking about
yes,
Islam and even the way
yes.
that you'll sing a verse in English and then you'll sing
Hmm.
a verse in Bahasa. Can you talk about your
Hmm.
style and kind of how that developed?
Well, in the beginning of my style, like I have a very eclectic musical background. My dad and also mom listen to a lot of Indonesian pop music and also traditional music, so very familiar to that. But then when I grew up, I listened to a lot of hip hop and also rock and jazz. I even dabbled in having a rock band when I was in high school. But when I was in university, like they had a lot of Caribbean folks that took me in, and they saw me having talent. For me, as my, I guess, musical expression in vocals, I can play drums and guitar, but in my musical expression, I tend to translate drums into my singing.
Mm.
That's why I'm not a rapper, but I love rapping. I'm not a singer, but I love singing. So I guess it fits perfect on my musical expression for reggae music, in which part DJing or rapping in Jamaican it has a lot of melodies in it. So I love that style.
Yeah, and so much of the music, like I said, is really touching across borders. And I remember we did this film
Yes,
recently last year called The Prayer Beyond Borders at the US-Mexico
yes,
border,
yes.
where we've been gathering with Muslims and Christians who are trying to end the tyranny of that, 30-foot wall that separates people. And it was your song, I remember, Barriers and Borders. I was thinking about it the whole time we were making that film And one of the
Thank
really
you.
incredible things is I was talking to some of the imams and the Christians that are in the film, and I was using that language, and they started using it in the film, even where they were talking about that this border is only there because the border's in our hearts and our minds. You know, and I think that's really amazing about your work is the way that you connect with also the global reggae movements. Can you talk about some of that, how you're breaking barriers and borders through your music?
I mean, for let's say going back to the history of like Jamaican music and reggae music, it is something special of this little island in Jamaica that influenced and impacted the whole globe in not just the musical style itself, but also shifting the mindset of people and giving a lot of people a different perspective, you know. And reggae music can transcend so many, you know, nationalities, faiths, and basically the message is the same. It's all about humanity. And for me, I was like, I think I was drawn and it resonated with me since I was a child, listening to Bob Marley's message and all of that. You know?
That's beautiful, yeah. And of course, with this show that we're trying to build here, that we're starting with the Center for Global Muslim Life, is really about this idea of Ummah builders, people that are building community around the world. Can you talk kind of about the community that's been built around your music, you know, the shows you have, how you connect with your fans, and even the rest of the reggae artists in Indonesia, and kind of the movements that you're involved in there?
I mean, with my music, Indonesia is I believe, one of the most diverse nations in the world. The majority of us are Muslims, alhamdulillah, but also we have, of course, a population of Hindu and also Catholics, Christians. Even in Bali, it's predominantly Hindu, and I always believe in coexistence, and Indonesia has become a great example for that. And through my audience, I always remind them, you know, that we have to give thanks, we have to give shukr, we have to be grateful that we are in this diverse nation. We always that's probably one of my biggest messages in my music, diversity. Or one of the things about salam, you know, like let's say living in Bali, the assalamu alaikum is swastiastu, and basically it translates the same thing, you know. I wish that peace is upon you. So that's one of the messages that I really stress as a artist.
That's beautiful. And what do you can you talk a little bit more about what do you do with your reggae music and beyond it? What are projects that you're involved in that you want to see happening in the world to build community, to connect people?
To build communities, right now, I mean, like with my audience itself, I tend to value them as pretty much as my community, the ones that listen to me, the ones that listen to my message. And I believe that with the music that I belong to and the music that I do, that I'm really hoping, inshallah, that it can be inspired to once again shifting that mindset. I mean,
and I have to give a shout out. I love in one of your tracks you have Malcolm X, who you might see behind me there, right, where you talk about re-education. And I think that that's really beautiful because I've spent a lot of time in Southeast Asia. I lived in Malaysia. I've been blessed to spend time in Indonesia. And I mean, I love it. It's one of my favorite parts of the world. I think it's really a beautiful, balanced life. But I think that as a younger generation, we have less of that political mentality that maybe existed in the 60s and, you know, the Conference of Bandung that happened, of course, in Indonesia, and that really that third world ideology of connecting the world, connecting people, connecting our struggles. And we're coming back to a moment where we need that right now, right? We really, really need to be able to connect politically as we see what this virus is doing to our world, what the economy, what's going to happen to these economies. So can you talk about kind of some of those political messages that you bring into the music? Even like the song Farmer Man, right? You're talking about farming, but it's actually a very political song talking about growing our own food and being self-sustaining.
Yes, self-sustaining and self-reliance. I mean, I'm very much influenced by our first president, Sukarno. He's a very great national hero of ours, of Indonesia. And in terms of like the political field, my perspective would be his. That I agree a lot. He believes in one, independence, self-reliance for nations, that nations should take control of their destiny and go, you know, in their own direction without any other major, let's say, first world influences or anything like that. That would be my part.
Yeah, and it's this idea that the grass is always greener, but we really, the world is, it's being unveiled what the realities of the United States are right now in the midst of this virus, how unequal the United States is, even within it and as a country. And I think that so many people like want to come here, but then those of us who live here, we see the real struggles on the ground. And so I think you're right that we have to connect as people, and really move to a next level of ideology and spirituality. And so with that, you know, I wanted to move into, of course, the album. I think this album coming out at the end, you said, I think it's coming out for Eid, but you've just been firing it with single after single that's so beautiful.
Yeah.
So can you just talk about the set of music that you've put out, and then most recently with Al Wadud?
All right. Well, with the new album, this is probably the longest process that I've taken to record an album, to produce an album. Usually it would take me about 6 to 8 months. I usually just bust out tunes after tunes after tunes after tunes and collect them into pretty much as like a batch of singles, and then afterwards come out with an album. But this is pretty much the whole album. It can be defined as a self-portrait, and the things that I've experienced personally the last few years, maybe 5 to 6 years or so, from my journey to Jamaica, from my touring in Europe and all of that, and also from personal experiences, me losing my dad, and also I was in a very toxic relationship romantically. It needs to happen. So the hikmah is that this album wouldn't happen if I didn't experience those things. And so it's pretty much, the whole album is called Satrio. It's a self-portrait and also a conceptual album where a man, from the first track, he starts off feeling broken, vulnerable, maybe a bit of sorrow, but is also optimistic and also hopeful. So he takes more of an inward journey. And at the end of the album, he's at a level where he realizes and becomes self-aware. But so the audience and the listener would be taken into like, okay, what broke this man, and what was like the points where he saw himself, being empowered by things, So it's very exciting because it's my own personal narrative. That's why the album is pretty much complete. That's why we're just firing out singles, so people would get like frames and pictures of a bigger portrait. So I'm really excited for it. I don't think in reggae music anyone has ever done that before. Something that becomes really vulnerable, that I want to become as honest as I am, in my faith, in my spirituality, in my personal things like that, because a lot of people tend to box me as of like, Ras Muhammad is probably a saint and like that. No, I'm no saint. I'm a sinner, like just like everyone, So I want to be, it's very redefining and more like a rebirth of Ras Muhammad, because my birth name is Muhammad Egar, so it's more on the perspective of Muhammad Egar as a person, seeing as this person, Ras Muhammad, the man of, international man and traveling and all of that. So really excited for it.
No, but you're definitely bringing in, a deeper spirituality related to Islam in the album as well, right? Talking about Sirat al-Mustaqim, singing that within Step It, and then of course Al-Wadud being one of the names of Allah. And I just think, what is that intentional? Is that part of your journey, or?
That's part of my journey, brother. Like Al-Wadud itself, it came into fruition in reality in about August 2019, but it's actually a song, a lamentation of how I dealt with my grief, losing my father, and also how the Quran and also how the poems of Rumi really helped me in the process of grieving and also healing. So my father passed away in 2017, and it was a very, very long grief, because at that time my mother was also working. She's retired now, but she was working in Hungary, and our plan was that the three of us, me, my dad, and also my mom, would go to Umrah, to the pilgrimage, right before she goes into retirement. But that didn't happen because Allah had different plans. So it was a very long process of healing for me. And pretty much writing that song, I had to revisit some really, not necessarily dark places, really, really vulnerable places. I had to go to that moment where I received the news, and also while being in Bali, I couldn't fly out right away to Jakarta because it was flooding, and it was like so frustrating. And in a few days, I was deep into the salat and the zikir and all of that, and like I felt really, really alone. And the Quran spoke to me, and I heard a voice, not a physical voice, but so because I felt very alone, where I just felt that voice saying, "Is like, hey, God, you're not alone. The Malaika is with you, Allah is with you," and it became that. So pretty much, when the Quran spoke to me, I took it in a personal experience. It's like, wow, man. It's like, there are some things where like the nafs and the false self tends to like really influence your mind sometimes, where you're just like, why does this happen? Why is our purpose in life? Why do people go away? And why do we fall in love or in love and then like they're just gone? Are we supposed to feel this? We are supposed to feel this because it is a part of our human experience, that we can't be happy all the time. I don't want to be happy all the time, because then we can also be grateful when we're happy, when we tend to have those very trying, struggling, and challenging times. That's for me. That's why, well, Allah Ta'ala is the greatest and He's the most loving. That's why I see it. And also in the chorus, Ya Wadud Sang Mahakasi Lebih Dekat Dari Urat Nadi. Lebih Dekat Dari Urat Nadi is actually quoted from the Quran, from Surah Kaf, verse 16, I believe, is وَنَحْنُ أَقْرَبُ إِلَيْهِ min Habilil Warid. And that's actually my dad. He always quotes that frequently every time we spoke about Islam since I was a child. So that's actually, it's like almost a dialogue between myself, my dad, a tribute to my dad, but also a dialogue and a conversation with Allah Ta'ala. So that's what Al Wadud is.
Wow.
And hopefully, I don't know. I mean, it wasn't planned, but it's just like, it felt like the recent release, and also with Jawara, it feels like very relevant to people, just to remind them, like this is a very trying and struggling and very difficult time for all of us, and the world is affected in all fields. So we must be steadfast in our faith, not lose hope, because it can be people can fall into despair in any time. I mean,
yeah, I think you're right. And those are those moments, right? I lost my own mother 6 years ago, and that led me to great reflection, that also led me to building some of the most beautiful things I've ever built in my life, really, like launching my first work as my own companies, and really beginning to be a filmmaker and really push my writing, because it's how do you reflect on that time in that moment. And I think that we're living in that moment now, right, where those of us who've dealt with that type of pain, I think we all feel a collective longing for each other, a longing for connection, which, and this Ramadan is obviously going to be very different because of that.
Oh, very much different. Very much different.
Yeah.
I mean, you've been to Malaysia and also Indonesia, right?
Yeah.
I mean, we have a different culture and tradition, especially when Ramadan comes, like a few days before Ramadan, everyone goes pulang kampung, is where they go back to their villages, to where they originate from, and we definitely can't do that right now, because everyone has to be on alert and take precautions. So it's going to be very, very, very different.
And Allah has put us in itikaf, right? Allah has put us in our homes and in halwa, right? The retreat of our homes. And alhamdulillah, we have the teaching that our homes are, the earth is a masjid. And so we make the intention, and maybe we can grow in this Ramadan in ways that we couldn't otherwise. And maybe we all can produce beautiful things and connect with each other online like this. And that's part of what we're trying to do with this program, is really give people a way to connect and talk and have inspiration from people who are really building things around the world. So what are your plans for Ramadan? What are you thinking? What's your message to the people as we head into the month?
Well, for me right now, my situation in Bali, I just moved to point A to point B. I'm in Ubud. Ubud is like the center for art and also for yoga. For me, I'm really drawn into this because I have a lot of artists here, even though I'm just staying at home. But for Ramadan, I'm going to best friend's house because he has a family there. So, because in here I'm mostly by myself, so I want to have that connection, have that energy of like celebrating Ramadan together, and of course doing everything from the Tarawih and also the fastings.
Yeah.
So that is my plan. But I think the message for the Ummah is just coming back again. We have to stand fast in our iman and also sabr, have patience because it's a different time and a trying time for me.
Exactly.
For
No,
us.
and I think it's a time where a lot of people will be looking also to spiritually connect. And so Ramadan
Yes.
is that time, right, of praying and asking. And so
Yes.
we ask Allah to alleviate, this virus and take this thing away from this earth and just and heal us all spiritually,
Yes. 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 And it gives us a chance and opportunity to also look within ourselves. Hopefully after everything, passes over and blows over, we become more compassionate with each other and more kind to each other.
Yeah, exactly. And then you said, and then the plan is to put the album out at Eid, right? Do you have any plans? You
That
put out
was
more
my
singles
plan.
or?
That was my plan. But last week it changed. I spoke to Oneness Records. It's like, yeah, with all of this, what about we push it back? So we push it back to August. So we're coming out with more singles, and inshallah ta'ala, that we'll be releasing it in August. And we'll see what happens afterwards.
Yeah, man. Beautiful.
Yeah,
Yeah.
yeah. But I'm really excited for it because the Satrio album, it really reflects on my being as a person and also as someone who's not just uh, does reggae music. So I have a eclectic background, so I really pour my heart out and also pour my musical expression and also my artistic expression in it. There is a lot of influences from jazz, R&B, a lot of acoustic quiet parts. There's even orchestra
Mm.
where I do a very long poem and I have very exotic titles such as the one Pistol Parabellum, and also there's another tune called Flight of Ananta. And the closing of the album is actually taken from the Fatiha Malik Yawmiddin. It's called Meta Master I Allah.
Mm.
So it's like beyond this realm, the one that sees is the Most High.
Mm.
And yeah, so it's very exciting. I'm quite nervous about it because it's definitely quite a change.
Well, we don't want to wait till August, but we understand.
Yeah.
We understand the delay. We hope to hear more music soon, and we're super
Yes.
excited about it. You know what? And in the meantime, we can find some older music as well. I've been listening a lot to Leaving Babylon in the context of.
Leaving Babylon.
I know it's a Bad Brain song, but I think you remixed it and remade it. It
Yeah.
really. I feel that right now in the United States, like trying to get out of this place.
Well, how did you find out my music first time, the Salam? Or did you just stumble on it on the internet, or did
Yeah, I
someone
mean,
recommend it?
as someone who's been like a publisher and had different publications and researches global Muslim life, I think that I was really just I'm always researching and looking for different things, and I think it was probably listening to enough like Malaysian and Indonesian music that it came up in one of the feeds one day, or we have mutual friends in KL, I'm sure, but I mean, part of my intention, and I feel like that's was Malcolm's intention during his life. Was Malcolm X was really about how do we connect people and connect beyond these false borders that have been created around us, these colonial borders. And so my intention with this work with the Center for Global Muslim Life, the first company I started, it was originally called Ummah Wide, right? This idea of worldwide connecting community. Now we changed it to the Center for Global Muslim Life, as we're a nonprofit based in the U.S. But the intention is to really create conversations that can connect Muslims around the world and also connect with the rest of humanity. And because I think that there's so much the research and the talk that happens about Muslims is primarily just about Islamophobia or negativity, right? It's never about what people are building. It's never about positive messages. It's never about beautiful music or just beautiful movements or scholarship and all these different things. So that's really what we're trying to do. And with your music, of course, I was just drawn to it because I think you bridge all those worlds, right? I think that it's like I took a trip 2 summers ago. I actually visited the Wali Songo.
Wali Songo.
Yeah, and so and that's what they said the Wali Songo were. is that they were able to do what they were able to do because they were bridge builders, right? And they were able to
very much.
build bridges while having a really relevant way of teaching Islam to the people
Of course,
in
of
Java.
course. I mean, like, right now, a lot of the majority that tend to put Islam in a very violent context. I mean, in Indonesia, we are the biggest majority, I mean, the biggest population for Muslims, but there was never anything recorded where there was the spread of Islam was spread through violence. Never.
Yeah,
You
never.
know, like with the Wali Songo, everyone is spread through beauty. Like one of the very renowned ones, Sunan Kalijaga, is the one that had messages in the Aqidah of Islam through the shadow puppets, through the wayang. And the shadow puppets were actually based on a Hindu mythology from, I think, Mahabharata, I think, or Ramayana, you know? So he did that. So, and then it became now,
right?
What it is now.
Right, and that's how we spread this beauty. And so I think that's what we're really trying to do in this time, and your music is really doing that. So we thank you for taking the time. It's really an honor.
Welcome.
If you any more shout outs you want to give, or anything else you want to plug or talk about?
No, I mean, I know I just want to share one of my visions, my personal visions. I would like to connect more with like West Africa, because I've seen like the biggest, I think, community and reggae scene is in West Africa, and it's in the Gambia, and where, as I think the Gambia is mostly predominantly Muslims, right? I think that's probably one of my visions, to connect with them, and also maybe probably take an adventure, a journey to Gambia. Try to connect with them
That's
there.
beautiful. Have you ever been to West Africa?
No, I've only been to Ethiopia and Egypt for the parts of Africa, but never. That's probably one of it's calling me. It's like, I need to connect with them through the music and also through the faith. And I think it would give them also a sense of like, oh, he's Muslim, but he's also playing reggae, and he's not like disconnecting from the faith. He's actually like, yeah.
Yeah, no, that's beautiful. When I took Shahada, I converted to Islam in 2002. And I struggled with kind of the understanding of Islam in the United States, because it was a bit harsh at that time. It wasn't what I would say a traditional understanding of Islam, a balanced understanding, a spiritually oriented understanding. And so I actually lived in Ghana, and Ghana was in West Africa, and Ghana was the first place where I really saw such a balanced, beautiful life of Islam. And then the other place I've seen it is, of course, is in Southeast Asia. And so I feel like there's a great connection there. And then the other piece of it that now I'm connecting to in my life is really Latin America, that there's so much spread of Islam happening in Spanish and in Latin America. My wife is actually Mexican, and I always tell her, I was like, we have to take you to Indonesia, because Mexicans and Indonesians, something about these people are really connected in like a spiritual way. And so I think, these parts of the world, we need to connect more. So yeah, you're welcome in the Americas. We'd love to have you there. One of my teachers, Sheikh Mohammed Al-Jilani, he's actually from the Gambia. He's really, really beautiful. And so there's a lot of really amazing stuff. You got to go to West Africa, definitely.
Yeah, definitely. And also to parts of Latin America again. I mean, I check your documentary, is very touching, and it also like, wow, mashallah, subhanallah. Like seeing Latinos embracing Islam is just like, wow. It's like, I mean, yeah, the message is universal.
So universal.
I mean,
and that's the reality, right? The world has to learn about Islam, because we're literally the largest faith group in humanity, and 1 in 4 people on this earth. And at a time when humanity is suffering the same difficulty, we have to look for common solutions, right? And the amazing thing about even Islam in the U.S., as you probably know, having lived here, there's so many Muslim doctors on the front lines, like really, literally thousands and thousands of Muslim doctors, probably tens of thousands of Muslim doctors in the United States on the front line in the midst of Islamophobia and all this hatred from this president and banning Muslims and everything else that's been going on here.
I know. America's president, for me, is always like, I mean, I'm not too much a political person. It's just like, first time when he, came into office, I'm like, he's never done a day of social service. So for me, it's just like,
Yeah, and then you have politicians like Mahathir Mohamad, right, in Malaysia, who's done his entire life of service and is literally that old from that third world internationalist understanding of reality as a doctor. I mean, those are, you know, people, not to say that everything he did was perfect, but at the same time, people who deserve to be in service. So, but we have to pray for those people to come into power and do the good work ourselves. So yeah, we pray for you, brother, in this Ramadan. May your Ramadan be blessed.
Thank you.
Yeah, and we say salam to everyone. If you want to say peace to everyone.
Ya, yang semuanya dari Indonesia, Insan Reggae, terima kasih sudah bisa gabung. Ada juga Irfan Shah. There's a lot of people from my audience. Yeah, Muhammad Julfikar, hello. Yusuf is like in the back. There's the photo of Habib Umar.
Yeah.
Is that right?
That's actually I bought that in Jakarta.
Katanya dibelinya di Jakarta, Masya Allah, keren habis.
One of the big maulids when he was visiting Jakarta.
Yeah. And a good brother of mine that lives in Bali, Ikram. Assalamualaikum, akhi. He says Wali Songo will use music as a part of Da'wah. So, yeah. Maybe you would like to say something to my audience? I think there's a bunch of them.
Yeah, just love to everyone in Indonesia. We're praying for Indonesia. You know, we love you all, and we really want, you know, you're such a beautiful people, and we thank you for your example that you've given to the world, and we're really trying to take from your example. Like I said, that's why I went on the Wali Songo journey personally.
Thank you, brother. And we pray the best.
Is to learn from you.
Pray for all the blessings. Yeah.
All right, brother. Much love to you. Peace to everyone. Salam alaikum.
Yeah, walaikum salam. Stay safe, yeah? And stay healthy.
You as well. Peace.
All right, take care. Yeah, that's it.